And welcome to another edition of the Regai and Rhoda podcast here on the Press Play Podcast Network. Kenny Rhoda alongside Michael Regai, getting you ready to break down the Browns for the regular season as they are getting closer and closer to that lid lifter, as I like to call them, although Bill Needle hated me for calling that. Rest his soul, September 12th at Kansas City. That's when it counts. And they played a preseason game. We're actually taping this on Sunday night. We'll get into that against the Giants. But Michael Regai, let me say this. Thank you to your son, Cal Regai, who filled in admirably for yours truly last week as I was still visiting my son Cameron in Portugal. And you guys held down the fort a little, what would that be, R&C? Or no, R&R, Regai and Regai last week, huh?
Yeah, in your absence, but loved all the pictures from Portugal with you and Cameron and the two lovely ladies, and it looked like you had a tremendous time. Cam looks great. Looks like he's yeah, man.
He's yoked up, man. Did you see? He's got a six-pack. I only carry around a six-pack. He's got a six-pack, you know?
Yeah, the pictures were great, and I know that you had a terrific time, and that's a lot of fun. And yeah, I think Kel had a great time in sitting in for you. I know when I told him, he was real excited, and so it was a good time. And of course, Dave Emmert took great care of us, our outstanding producer, and it was fun. Yeah, it was fun. It went well.
How about that? A big week for him. He gets to do the R&R podcast, and then he's off to Ohio State. As a freshman, Michael, Reg, okay, everybody tells me they remember Cameron when he was a little boy at the station and everything. Michael, I remember Cal. Yeah, but I'm saying I remember Cal when he was that little redhead who'd pop into the station and now he's off as a freshman at Ohio State. My goodness.
Kenny, no words. It's just that, as you know, because during all that time, I, of course, was you were my conduit because I'd have so many questions. You and I'd talk, or we just bring things up. And yeah, did you have this with Cam? And you tell me, absolutely. And it's going to go fast. And well, you're going to turn your head, and he's going to be graduating from high school. And boy, my man, were you right about that? I just can't believe 13 years. You go back to when your sons start kindergarten and then graduate from high school, and a couple months later, you're moving them in to start their college experience. But yeah, he loved it, and I think he's real excited. And he's going to major in finance. Good. And loving that, and he's going to have a great time. I don't doubt that at all.
Yeah, and you passed along my OH to him, I hope.
I did, yes, and he did. I did, and he, of course, responded with IO.
Okay,
and said, yeah, he knows. He knows. He said, maybe I'll see Mr. Rhoda die. You could. I said, you can see him at an Ohio State football game because I know Kenny goes. So yeah, if that's the case, we'll make sure that you get together.
All right, sounds good. Well, there's the latest on Cameron and Cal, the little kids that are all grown up now and everything and doing their thing. We're going to do our thing now, talking Browns football here on the R&R podcast. And Michael, second preseason game in the books. No starters, I don't think, played. It maybe one or two if I missed the starting lineups, but nobody of significance playing. A lot of the backups who were trying to make this team or position themselves on the depth chart got playing time as they beat the Giants 17-13 as we tape this on a Sunday night. Your thoughts from what you saw, I guess, with the backups versus the backups?
Kenny, I want to really begin with what you just brought up, because now to me, I completely understand it. I get it. I knew we weren't going to see Baker Mayfield today and the starting receivers and Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt and the starting O-line and even the D. I get it. I get it. But I've got to tell you, they're not going to play next week in Atlanta. You know that. I mean, I'd be shocked now if they're going to go in. Kenny, I get it. I completely understand it. I'm a little conflicted by it. I mean, and again, I would like to have seen a couple of series today from those guys we just mentioned. And again, because, So September 12th, they're going to roll into Arrowhead and against Kansas City. And now, of course, they're going to say that Thursday and Friday of this week, they got a lot of tremendous work in against the New York Giants on the practice field in Berea. Okay, I'll roll with it. Again, I would have talked to Mayfield, all the starters, all the guys, and just, what do you think? What do you think about a series or two? Right. Either today or next. Well, again, they're not going to play in Atlanta. They're not. So to me, it would have been today. I completely understand it. I would have approached it a little bit differently, however.
I'm curious about next preseason game. What is it on Sunday night? It's on national TV, and I know it's again, it's meaningless. And I'm thinking like you are that they're probably not going to play. But do you think Baker gets in the ear of Kevin Stefanski and says, "Let me get a series in, right? Let me get a series in," and because I looked around the league the last 2 weeks. Tom Brady played, what was it, last week with the Buccaneers and their offense. Ben Roethlisberger played a couple of series with the Steelers. Now, they've got a brand new offensive line that's not really good, so maybe they wanted to test that out. But some of the teams out there, the veteran coaches are playing their starters at least one game, a couple of series, whereas so far we haven't seen that from Kevin Stefanski yet. And then we'll find out if indeed they get in at all against Atlanta, or did, as you put it, Thursday and Friday's joint practice, did that suffice for Kevin Stefanski seeing his offense go against somebody else's defense and vice versa?
As you suggested, I hope they have this conversation this week. I really do. I hope Kevin Stefanski discusses with Baker Mayfield, with if Odell Beckham can go physically, with Jarvis Landry, right, with the tight ends, Hooper and Njoku, certainly with Chubb and Hunt. And again, I'm not talking about, and maybe it is just one series, right, assuming it's not a 3 and out. But I hope they do. I hope Coach Stefanski gets the thoughts of those players we just mentioned. You want to do it? You think it's important? You feel you're good? Fine, but I'm not. Let me know. Let me know if you want to work a series or two. I hope they have that conversation.
Yeah, Patty Mahomes, Andy Reid, they played a couple of series with Kansas City. So at least they got a few reps in an actual game situation. So that'll be interesting to see again Sunday night, 8 p.m. on NBC at Atlanta against the Falcons, the final preseason game before they open up September 12th at KC. You and I were texting back and forth before we started taping this, Reg, and we wanted to get into a couple of areas on this roster. And let's start with the one you texted me about, and that's the running back situation there. We know the top two. Nick Chubb, one of the top 100 players in the NFL. I think it came in, he was number 26 on the NFL's list. So a lot of talent at the running back situation. They haven't had this problem in how many years where they're trying to figure out who they should keep, who they should let go at the running back position. Demetric Felton, the rookie out of UCLA, Dearness Johnson, he's been with the team now, 1-2 years, whatever it's been. Well, what do you do in that situation now that you've got some depth there?
Kenny, it's a problem of riches now. When have the Browns ever had this up until the last couple of years at various positions? And I'm thinking about it today. Ken, it's obvious they're both NFL quality running backs. Right. I can see why they were so high, and almost it mirrored the Donovan Peoples-Jones selection in the 6th round last year. Here's Demetric Felton, a young man out of UCLA, of course, playing for Chip Kelly at UCLA, but he's talented, Kenny. He's a running back. You could play him in the slot. He can run tackle to tackle, and of course he can run that outside zone that the Browns like to butter their bread with in the run game. So, but 4 of them, they're going to make the roster, of course. But again, you're not going to play 4 running backs. I mean, I'm wondering how much this week do you consider Felton more in the running back room, or we saw him today in the slot a little bit, but it's the same story, Ken. If you have Demetric Felton, you say he's a wide receiver. Well, you got 4 for sures there, right? Now, This is assuming, of course, is health for Odell Beckham, and he can begin the year, but let's just say, and hopefully there is. So you got 4 there. You got Beckham and Landry and Peoples-Jones and Higgins. Now, they're your 4. So you're going to go after that. I mean, you start, Kadero Hodge caught the touchdown pass today. He's an NFL wide receiver. There's 5. So if you're saying, well, we'll just make Felton the receiver.
Yeah.
Well, he's 6 deep there.
Right.
Certainly at least 5.
Anthony Schwartz, the rookie who hasn't played, they're not going to cut him, right? So you're looking at 5 for sure, wide receivers, maybe 6. So do you consider Felton and Dearness Johnson as special teams guys first and then backups to either wide receiver or running back? I don't know.
Yeah, well, and again, so then now the thing is here, you're starting to get into a numbers crunch on the 53, Kenny, because you're going to, if you keep all, and JoJo Natson. Now, do they have the luxury of being able to afford a roster position for a guy who, because of the things we just mentioned in both he's strictly a special teams guy and a return man. I mean, do they have a roster spot? And again, they're a very talented football team. There's a lot, as we know, that think they're one of the top 3-4 rosters in the NFL. But there's going to be some numbers crunching that's going to have to go on this week. And I don't know. It's going to be interesting because I don't know what the answers are for them. But as we went through, you got to make some decisions in that running back room and that wide receiver room.
Yeah, don't forget about Davion Davis, too, who's had a nice camp.
There you go.
That's a practice squad guy probably, or hopefully you hope you can keep him on the practice squad, that somebody doesn't come and take him away. Might they, and I'll throw this your way, Reg, might they, with any of those guys we just named, might they consider trading any of those guys to another team to get a draft pick? If it's a numbers crunch and they don't just want to lose them, could they possibly trade one of those guys?
Yeah, and to me, and again, I know he's Kadero Hodge would be the guy to me as a wide receiver. I mean, because of Baker's relationship with Higgins, I don't think you want to move him. Although I believe that Donovan Peoples-Jones, if he's not already is going to move ahead of Higgins.
I agree.
Peoples-Jones will be 3 and Higgins will be 4. If you're just counting up your wide receivers. But again, that's still, we know he's a quality NFL receiver, probably start on a lot of football teams. I think Kadero Hodge could probably be the 3 on even some good football teams. So, again, it's a problem of riches, but you're going to have to make decisions, and you hope you don't make the wrong ones when you start looking to if they keep all these guys, you're going to have to take away from some other positions. There's just 53 roster spots. So, it's going to be intriguing.
Roster cuts by 4 p.m. on Tuesday to 80 players, and final 53-man roster cuts by August 31st. So those are the dates, times we're looking at that, Andrew Berry, Kevin Stefanski, Paulie Analytics up there in the front office, all those guys, they got to make those decisions. So we'll see what it comes down to there, Reg. Let's do this, Reg. I want to look at the quarterback position real quick before we get a break in. I want your thoughts on Case Keenum and Kyle Lauletta. Keenum obviously is the backup. I thought he played okay today. He threw behind a number of receivers. Now, granted, they're the backups, and it's the backup offensive line and everything, but he threw a bad pick in the end zone. The touchdown pass that he hooked up with Hodge on the previous, 2 plays before that, they ran the same route, and he threw behind a receiver in the end zone there. Yeah, Higgins, that's who it was. So give me your thoughts. Do you feel good about Case Keenum as Baker Mayfield's backup, and is Lauletta the third-string guy that they keep?
Yeah. Kenny, I feel real good about Case Keenum, and I'll tell you why. I think he is the perfect model of what I want. If I've got a real good football team in the NFL and I got a playoff football team and I've got a young quarterback, I want that veteran like Case Keenum as the backup. And specifically, Kenny, a veteran who has started and won a lot of football games in his career, and we know Keenum's done that. You're right. His accuracy today was a little bit off. No question about it. The pick was horrendous. Yeah. And I kind of shook for a second. I looked, whoa, you just make that throw? And he did in the back of the end zone into double coverage. But Kenny, I feel real good about Case Keenum. Look at again, I was during that first drive efficient. productive, moving the football. It's 2 weeks in a row now. He's put points up,
Yep.
right on the first drive of the football game. You like that? I just like his pedigree for being a backup to a guy like Baker Mayfield.
What about Laletta? Has he cemented himself as the number 3 guy? Do they keep all 3? Do they try and put him on the practice squad? Might another team come and grab him if they don't keep him on the 53 man?
There you go. And that's there is the crux of this, where we'll add the quarterback position to what we just talked about with running backs and wide receivers. Yeah. You put him on the practice squad. I don't think he'll stay on the practice squad too long. I think there are NFL teams, Kenny, that would look at Kyle Laletta as their backup. But we'll see. I think he has shown he can be an NFL quarterback. I'm not saying he'd be a starter on a real good team, but there's another one. You're going to keep him. You're going to try to get him on the practice squad. You're going to keep 3 quarterbacks on the roster for a team like the Browns. And again, I know that, but can they afford to do that? Take up a roster spot with a 3rd quarterback who is not going to see the football field at all if you keep him active. No.
Yeah, and with him, if he has to play, then you're hurt. And that means your top 2 guys went down, right? But he has that talent, so it's going to be an interesting dilemma that they face when they have to get down to the final 53 with not only the running backs, the wide receivers, but the quarterback room as well. All right, let's do this, Reg. We'll get a break in here with the R&R podcast. When we come back, let's talk some defense. And has the first round pick, Greg Newsome, has he done enough? Has he impressed the staff enough, Joe Woods and the front office and everybody enough to be the starter opposite Denzel Ward against Patrick Mahomes and Kansas City on opening day? We'll get into the defense when we return.
Looking for new insights on the Cleveland sports scene with a unique side of Cleveland sports history? Then you found the perfect podcast. I'm John Sable.
And I'm Scott Sable, and we're hosts of the Sable Brothers on the Baseline podcast, a podcast about Cleveland sports, but not your typical podcast about the land's sports teams. Join us as we embark on a journey of sharing a unique and historical side of Cleveland sports history with the help of some former Cleveland sports stars and other historical figures.
All right here on the Sable Brothers on the Baseline podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hello, this is Don Mike Mendoza, the host of the Producing While Asian podcast. Join us to listen in on conversations with everyone who identify from producers to non-producers who all are part of the AAPI community. There's all that and more on the Producing While Asian podcast here on the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hey there, this is Brent Spillin, co-host of a Swingin' a Tribe MLB podcast. Listen, we're just a couple of fans who love to talk everything Cleveland Indians baseball. If you're a fan like us, then this is the podcast for you. Go Tribe.
We continue with the Reg and Rhoda podcast here on the Press Play Podcast Network. Shout out to our producer extraordinaire, Dave Emmert, making sure this all gets out to you in the Poscatosphere, as we like to say. So enjoy this as we talk more Browns football with you. And time to take a look at the defense, Reg. And the first pick for the Browns in the draft this year for them, they went cornerback, Northwestern, Greg Newsome, and then they moved back up in the second round to get JOK, right? Koromoa. So give me your thoughts on what you've seen from both of those guys. And are we talking potentially about 2 starters from their first 2 picks?
Yeah, well, first of all, the cornerback situation right now, we know kind of the, the health struggles with their number 1 guy, Denzel Ward. Hopefully they sound like they believe he's going to be fine on September 12th and ready to go. I sure hope so. I sure hope he gets a chance to at least be on the practice field the week leading up to that game. And now Greedy Williams, Kenny, and as we know, I mean, he had that terrible, nerve damage shoulder injury, trying to bounce back from that. I think that's a big part of the reason that they, not that he's not a quality player and he's a first-round guy, but yeah, I think the Browns, that's a big part of the reason they locked in on Greg Newsome. Made him that first-round pick out of Northwestern after he excelled in the Big Ten. in the first couple of football games, Kenny, he's had moments both ways. He's been they've gone after him a little bit, and there have been some passes completed on him. But Kenny, I like his physicality. I like the way that he'll come up. He's a hitter. He likes to hit. He doesn't back off in the other team's run game. He's sticking that 190 pounds in there and looking to hit somebody. So I think that's a big positive. I'm not that worried about him. Again, sure, you know how it is. Rookies on the corners in the NFL, they're going to get tested. And I'm not afraid to put him on the field, Kenny. If he's got to be on the field, and I hope Denzel Ward is healthy so that can be with Denzel. And if Greedy Williams needs more time or has to not get as many snaps early on, trying to get, let's go, Greg Newsome. I mean, you're a first-round guy. Let's go. I feel good about him, Ken.
Yeah, and here's the other thing. In the game today, Greedy Williams actually started and left after 2 series with a groin injury. So he had the shoulder injury that kept him out all of last year. He just recently missed practice with a migraine, and then he starts, plays, and hurts his groin. So this is a guy, durability is a huge question mark with him that, they took him high in the second round to play opposite Denzel Ward. Well, I agree with you. They were so concerned about him that they went out in the first round when they were thinking about taking, Cormoa in the first round. They rolled the dice and got him in the second round and went cornerback with Newsome. So I think you're going to see Ward and Newsome as your starting corners and Hill as your nickel back there on opening day against Kansas City.
Yep, I think you got it spot on there, and Troy Hill got a little bit of a dust up with was it Sterling Shepard, one of the Giants receivers, after practice the other day,
right? And
so he had to play in the game today to just the fans. Yeah, you get into a fight, you're going to have to play on Sunday, and so Troy Hill decided to I'm going to see if coach is just whistling in the dark. No, he wasn't, because he played today. I think he was the only starter that saw significant snaps anyway. So I like Troy Hill a lot, Kenny. And if yes, I know he's best in the slot, but if you had to move him, outside the numbers a little bit, I think he's a good veteran. Was a big part of that LA Rams secondary. So I wouldn't be real concerned about it, but I want to see the secondary, Kenny, got to start to get healthy a little bit, man. Please, Denzel Ward, he's got to be ready to go. He's missed 4 games in each of his first couple of years. Played 12, 13 games played maybe. So, we got to have Denzel play a whole football season. You and I have talked about that here on the show a couple of different times leading up to the preseason.
Yeah, how about Grant Delpit? How about him playing just one football game? Another second-round high pick out of LSU. Go Tigers. And this guy can't stay healthy. And you know what? I loved what I saw today. Another interception for Richard LeCount III, the safety that they got out of Georgia in the 5th round. That's a great insurance policy to have right there, because Delpit is still a huge question mark.
Yeah, Kenny, love Richard LeCount. In fact, while you were vacationing, when Cal set in for you, we discussed LeCount and all the reasons why. I think and Andrew Berry, look, the guy, he just and look at all of these guys. These are these are guys that Kenny. All of them are coming from Peoples-Jones from Michigan, 6th round. Demetric Felton, UCLA, 5th round, right? Richard LeCount, Georgia.
Right.
These are guys from, he's getting guys out of big-time Power 5 programs, right? This is, again, I love the group of 5, and I love D2 and D3. But, I mean, these are guys that Andrew Berry is getting from some of the shall we say, when you say the name of those football programs, oh, yeah, he played there? Okay. I love it. I mean, Barry's done a terrific job with that, and Richard LeCount, I think, is going to be big in his rookie year for the Browns. I think he's got all the ingredients to do it, Ken.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. It was a great pick at the time. Value, they always talk about a value pick. This could be extreme value for Andrew Berry in the front office, getting him, especially with Delpit and his injury issues. Michael. Let me throw this your way. We talked in the previous segment about playing time for Baker Mayfield in the offense. Might it be more important to get some of the starters in on defense since you're going to have, what, 2 back from last year's squad with 8 or 9? Let's say, okay, let's give you 3 maybe starters from last year, right? 8 guys that are going to be new on the defense. If we're talking about getting playing time, might we want to see some of the defensive starters play in that Atlanta game? Yes.
Yeah. Well, again, how about Jadeveon Clowney? And you can say, well, listen, the guys have all been an all-pro. I understand that, but this is a new system. And, with Myles Garrett, Clowney was gotten specifically to play that opposite side from him. And I think Joe West is going to play them next to each other in some defensive personnel groups. Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see it for a series anyway, just to take a look at it, against another NFL team. I doubt it's going to happen, Ken. So, we're going to be sitting here the night of September 12th, and, we're either going to be feeling real good and say, hey, Stefanski, and they did it the right way, knew what they were doing, it was no big deal, or, if there's some holes in the armor, well, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I think they're putting health over experience or health over knowing each other early in the season. I think to them, health is more important. That's what I'm grasping from what I'm hearing with the press conferences, what I'm reading about, what I'm seeing. And again, Reg, we're not there every day, so we're not seeing what goes on in practice. So maybe they know what they see in practice, that things look good when, the starters were out there both offensively and defensively. And do you think possibly those joint practices could take the place of a 3rd preseason game? Do you foresee them getting down to 2 preseason games and then everybody practices with somebody for a couple of days starting like next year or whatever?
I think it's heading in that direction.
Yeah.
You bring up a really good point. And Kenny, I'm shocked that the NFLPA hasn't gone hard. They don't want to play 3 exhibition games. Right. They got it down from 4 to 3. And I use that term. I know NFL wants you to say preseason games. I understand. I always do. But I know the players don't feel that way. They'd like to get it down. Hell, if they get it down to 1, I think they would. And so with what you just threw out there, though, yes, I think this is starting to become more prevalent, more prominent, and I think more teams are going to want to do it. And maybe the NFLPA will get it down to where there are only 2 preseason football games.
If they do that, does that mean the schedule in the regular season bumps up to 18? Because the magic number we're hearing is 20. The owners want 20 games. They want 20 gate receipts, right? So if they only go 2 preseason and do those joint practices, do you foresee it going from what we've moved to this year, 17 for the first time, right? Do we go to 18 games?
I do. I think it'll be 18 and possibly, I think it'd come early as the 24 season.
Okay.
And then, yes, what's the next logical step then? Yeah. In another 3 years. By the end of this decade, Kenny, it may very well be a 20-game regular season. And you're right. That's exactly what ownership groups want. They're going to be able to sell that on the players. Now, the players are going to say, all right, then we're going to make the league minimum, I don't know, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 more than it currently is. Well, then if they more games, they're going to want more money, the players. And the way you start it is you raise that league minimum up, probably get up to over $1 million a year if you're going to play that many games. That you got to pay every man in that roster at least $1 million a year, a season.
If not that, then increase it from 53 to 56 as far as roster and give each team 3 more roster spots and raise the money a little. So there are a number of different ways they could possibly go with that. But I truly believe that these joint practices are going to take the place of another preseason game. And we could be down as early as next year. We could be down to 2 preseason. And I'm fine with that because if you're not going to play the starters anyway, then why the hell do you have? Well, we know why. They want to make money. And people that don't get a chance to see them in the regular season might get an opportunity to at least go to a stadium and see a Browns game, regardless of who's playing at least one time, right?
And I love watching games, Kenny. Give me a football game and I'm going to watch it, whether it's CYO, high school, college, NFL. I found my attention span wandering a little bit today as the game was going on. I'm flipped over a couple times real quick to check out a couple of MLB games. And it's like, it just maybe it's me getting older. It doesn't have the same luster it had preseason games anymore, and especially, I mean, you know that starters aren't going to play going in, and we know that. You got to watch it. You want to watch it. You want to see Demetric Felton and
Right.
Dearness Johnson, Kadero Hodge, like we opened up the show with. But I mean, something's going to give. All those things we just mentioned, something's going to give. Probably multiple of those things.
It was surprising to me. I did a Browns backers event today for the game between the Giants and the Browns, the Stark County Browns backers. Reg, we were packed at the bar into the patio, and when the Browns scored, everybody yelled, screamed, jumped up, and cheered. When they scored again, they did the exact same thing. Yeah. So, there are some people who are craving it no matter preseason, practices, scrimmages, whatever it is, training camp. But I'm like you. It's very hard for me to watch a game where I'm watching guys that aren't going to be on the roster in a couple of weeks, and then the guys that are on the roster will only play because of injury more than likely. So I'm with you, and maybe that's both of us getting older, where it's like, I don't need to see this, but I have to because it's what we do for a living,
Yeah, it is, and get it, and I love the game, and love watching guys getting their opportunity. But you just said it. After a while, it's like, well, you hope these young men can maybe find a way to make a roster, but they aren't going to be playing on Sunday. When you get down in the second half of a game like today, and you got guys running 3 and 4 and even 5th on depth charts playing on the football field, well, they're playing to see if somebody may want to pick them up a little bit and, give them an opportunity to make a team. And as we know, most of that they won't. And the lucky ones will be put on the practice squads. But I mean, it's a part of August, right? You got to get through it, man, until the bell rings in September.
All right, let's do this. We'll get our final break in. We'll come back. We'll wrap things up on this Giants-Browns game and moving into the final preseason game. I want to talk about an injury that occurred today to somebody on special teams and how that might affect the Browns as we get closer to that opener against Kansas City. We'll dive into that next here on the R&R podcast.
Hey, it's JD from the Hyman Podcast. I created this podcast to have hard conversations. Conversations that make us human but are also wildly uncomfortable. Conversations that help give voice to the voiceless and to the marginalized. Now you can listen to the entire first season on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from. Consider this your personal invitation to join the conversation.
Hey, I'm Jason.
And I'm Gary, and we love ball cards.
And if you love ball cards too, good news. You just found your new favorite podcast. From breaks to grading.
And from collecting to flipping, join us on the Ball Card Show.
The sports podcast for the sports collector.
And welcome back. Final segment here of the Reg and Rhoda podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network. And Reg, we talked offense, we talked defense. Hey, there's 3 parts to every team, right? And special teams gets overlooked a lot. And we're not going to do that because special teams, when you're a team that's challenging for a division title, a team that's challenging to get to the AFC Championship and dare I say a Super Bowl, special teams can win you a game or lose you a game and get you knocked out early. And with that in mind, the kicking situation, Cody Parkey was their kicker last year. And they like him, but they didn't like him enough where they said the job is yours. They brought in Chase McLaughlin, who now might be the starting kicker on opening day against Kansas City. And this is his, I think, 7th or 8th team, whatever it is, because a quad injury today for Cody Parkey. How concerned are you about that?
Concerned, never a good thing. Parkey did have a solid season with the Browns last year, but every team brings in competition for kickers. It's just the life they live, Ken, right? We've been around long enough to know that you're always going to be having to compete for your job as you start a new season. So, yeah, I'm concerned. I mean, again, groin injury too. Sometimes lingering effect, and I mean, especially you wouldn't feel as bad if it was a shoulder injury for your field goal kicker, right? But a groin injury, which is going to affect, everything he does with his approach and his, delivery, the whole deal. So, yeah, it's concerning. It's something they're going to have to really keep an eye on and think about the next 2 weeks.
Chargers, Niners, Colts, Vikings, Jaguars, Jets, and Browns now for McLaughlin. So maybe, this is, it's like you get lucky every once in a while. Here's a guy that just for whatever reason couldn't stick on a roster or didn't beat out the veteran. But he's 22 of 28 from what I'm seeing on ESPN.com in his career, 78%, and 97 total points, bouncing between those 6 teams and now his 7th team. So maybe the injury to Parkey isn't as serious, but today McLaughlin made his extra point and he hit a 49-yard field goal. So that's got to be a confidence booster for him as well as the coaching staff.
Yeah, and he's probably going to get opportunities in Atlanta next weekend to solidify himself, and then we'll see. I mean, because if Parkey isn't ready to go, in Kansas City, then obviously it would look right now that McLaughlin's the guy. Yeah. So we got to keep our eyes on that, and you Browns fans should too, because when Kenny said it, and a team that's when you're competing for a chance to win championships, that can't be an area you take lightly because it could cost you dearly.
Think about the Patriots, Reg, and they're not 6-time Super Bowl champions without Adam Vinatieri and Steven Gostkowski. I mean, think about how many close games they played and won, because to me, Vinatieri is the greatest kicker, in National Football League history because of the pressure kicks, especially against the Raiders that year with the tuck rule and everything. But they were in a lot of close games where 3 points decided it. So, if you have aspirations of getting to the Super Bowl this year, then you better have a solid kicking game. Now, the punter, what is it, the Scottish Hammer, Jamie Gillan? Yeah. He's fine, man. That dude booms him. He hit one today. I think the hang time was 42 seconds, according to Jimmy Donovan, as I was driving back from the Browns backers event I was at. Ray Guy would be impressed, I guess, with his hang time. So the punting game, fine. The kicking game, we'll see. And one last thing on special teams before we wrap things up. How important is the return game in today's game? Most kickoffs are going out of the end zone, right? Yeah, so you don't have a big kick return game there. Punt return, okay, that's still a factor, and that's where JoJo Natson maybe comes in, or maybe it's one of the other guys we talked about, the Ernest Johnson, I know, return kickoffs and everything, or maybe
Felton. Yeah.
So where are you with the return game, and do you just want a guy that's capable of catching the ball, not fumbling it to give it to your offense?
For what you said, in this day and age of the league, it's a luxury, Ken. I mean, you've got a good one, sure. I mean, that adds to your weaponry, but you laid it out perfectly. I mean, come on. How many times is that guy going to get kicked to where he has an opportunity? These cats now, man, these kickoff guys, they boom the football out of the end zone on kickoffs. That day of trying to angle it toward, a pylon on the corner of the end zone to make the return more, just drill it out of the end zone.
Right.
And the punters, again, their hang time is so good, and they're getting so good at angling kicks toward a sideline where it makes it much more difficult to return. I think it's a luxury, Kenny. If you got it, fantastic. And maybe once or twice a year, it'll the weaponry will really give you something strong, but most of the time they're not getting kicked to.
Kickers and punters are more important to teams now than punt returners and kick returners.
Absolutely.
Right? That's when you talk about the kicking game, forget that to me, how many inside the 20, hang time for coverage, right? Kicking the ball out of the end zone, making those long extra points now with the place kickers. And we've seen how that's messed with a lot of kickers' heads since they moved that extra point yardage back and everything. So to me, kickers and punters far more important than the return game in the NFL.
No question about it. Return guys, catch the ball.
Yeah.
Priority number one. Don't put it on the ground. Do not. You got to catch the ball. That's more important than, we need you to break returns. No, just catch it so that your offense can come on the football field. To me, that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, I'm with you 100% on that. Okay, so we've got one more preseason game to go. Roster cuts, like we said, to 53 on August 31st. September 12th is that opener on the road, 4:30. I think is kickoff, whatever that time is, at Kansas City. So to wrap this edition of the R&R podcast up, give me your thoughts on what you've seen, read, heard so far through these first two preseason games heading into the last one with the Browns.
Well, what I like is given that it's the second year now with Kevin Stefanski in this offense, Kenny, they're productive and they're efficient. All right. It's the same system now. And, we know that they can and will move the football. I think this system has proven to be, it may have saved Baker Mayfield's quarterbacking life playing in this system last year, right? And, boy, did he have weapons with it. And, Kenny, but we're just going to have to wait and see defensively because, as you said earlier in the show, there's been so many changes, potentially nine guys that were not on this football team last year that are going to start. I mean, the only two givens, I guess, would be, maybe three, Ward, Miles, and Ronnie Harrison.
Yeah,
he's been hurt too.
Throw him in, yeah.
Throw him in because I like him a lot, as we've talked about. But to me, those are the only three that were guaranteed.
You're going
to have 8-9 new guys out there defensively.
I look at this team on paper offensively as good as anybody in the NFL, in my opinion. All right, I
agree.
The best tandem of running backs, the receiving core. We've talked about it here in this podcast, how deep they are right now if everybody's healthy. The tight ends, we haven't even mentioned them. And David Njoku, the Chief, has had an outstanding camp, probably the best tight end in camp. Carlson's out for the season, so that is a blow from a blocking standpoint with the tight end position. The offensive line, to me, is the best in the NFL, 1 through 5 from tackle to tackle. I think a little depth concern there with, a couple of injuries and that. And I know the Giants supposedly were looking maybe to watch a lot of the backups from the Browns today to possibly see if the Browns cut somebody who they could pick up, or maybe there's a trade in the works there with the Giants, for some offensive line help because they need it there in New York.
Big time.
But offensively, I think the Browns are fine. Defensively is what's going to be interesting. How quickly can that defense with 8 or 9 new starters, how quickly can that come together and become a cohesive unit and improve on what they did last year? So that's what maybe not in the preseason, Reg, we won't see. That's what we'll be watching in the first 2 or 3 games of the regular season, because like we said, we don't know who's going to play in that final one against Atlanta.
Yeah, you're right. And I don't care. And we both agree that this offense, even arguably is top 3 in the National Football League. But Kenny, you can't expect to win 38-35 every week. I mean, right. I know it's an offensive league now. I got it. And I understand that, but you're not going to win 38-35 every week. I'm telling you, you're just not. We all know that. So we need that defense to be able to come together as quickly as possible and be able to where, if they could give up 22-23 a game, I think the Browns are going to be in great shape.
Yeah, you hit the magic number. I think it's right in that vicinity. I'll say 3 touchdowns, right? 21 points. They can hold teams in a scoring league now, right? You can hold somebody to 21 with what you have offensively. You're going to have a hell of a season. I think that would be an outstanding 21 points. That's the goal right there if you're Joe Woods with this defense.
Yep, no question about it. And again, we'll see. We'll see if they can blend and come together that quickly. Individually, are they very good? Yes, but defense in the National Football League is a lot about cohesion and a lot about, of course, you got to have the philosophy and the scheme that helps that cohesion grow. I feel good about that, but it's got to be done on a football field. People, that's what you work. No, until all the ammunition starts to fly, you're not going to really know. with this many new starters. You just aren't.
All right, that'll do it for this edition of the R&R podcast. We're going to get ready to rock and roll all season long with you, the Brownies. We're going to record podcasts after games when the Browns regular season starts, Michael. So we'll do that on a weekly basis.
Yes.
And then mix in some other podcasts with guests throughout the football season as well. So we've had a great response so far to the Regai and Rhoda podcast, and we're going to continue to provide that for you. We hope on a weekly basis, sometimes twice a week, depending on what's going on in the world of sports. It won't just be all football, although, hey, Browns, Buckeyes, I mean, come on. That's what matters in Northeast Ohio in the Indian season. I know they may be at 500 by the time we're done taping this, but that season's, over, and maybe we'll mix in some Cavs, but we should have a lot of fun as we move through these fall and winter months.
Going to be a great deal of fun, and football inclusive, and that's why all of you have to stay with us, as Kenny said. So a lot of fun tonight, Roadman. Always enjoyed it. Excellent stuff, and we'll do it again after the Browns-Atlanta game next week.
That sounds good. And you trick bag punks, we did not forget about you, okay? As soon as this preseason is over, the regular season rolls around, that's where you TBPers will become a part of the R&R podcast. And Michael and I can't wait to hear from the trick bag punks and what new equipment you all purchased here since we last were together on the radio. Reg, always a pleasure, my friend. We'll do this again after that final preseason game, and we'll rock and roll on the R&R podcast some more, all right?
Of course, buddy. You got it. Good stuff.